When you took your oath, did you swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America? Yes or no?
Yes, I did.
So I find that laughable. You don't behave like someone who takes that oath seriously.
So, remember the oath you took? You know, the one about supporting and defending the Constitution of the United States. I mean, it's hard to see how someone could take that oath seriously when they behave the way some people do. Now, let's dive into what's been happening with those impeachment papers against Donald Trump during his second term. This whole situation is way bigger than most folks realize, and honestly, it's moving faster than what you see in the mainstream news. We're not just talking about a couple of symbolic gestures from fringe members of Congress. No, there are multiple formal articles of impeachment out there with 7 different charges filed by actual members of Congress. These are being debated and voted on in the House, creating a lasting record of the accusations against the president that Democrats have made. Right after Trump kicked off his second term in April and May of 2025, Representative Schroeder filed 7 sweeping articles of impeachment. Fast forward to December 2025, and you've got Representative Al Green putting forth his own impeachment resolution. That's his 5th attempt across both of Trump's terms, and he's adamant about keeping the movement alive, regardless of how many times Republicans try to shut it down. Things are heating up even more recently. Following the Greenland text tied to the Iran war, at least one senator is now explicitly calling for a new push for impeachment that connects to those events. This isn't slowing down, it's getting more intense. The accumulation of these impeachment charges being recorded in Congress, waiting for a more favorable House majority to act on them, is honestly one of the most significant stories of political accountability we're seeing right now. I mean, can you wrap your head around how quickly this is all happening? It's absolutely wild. There are 7 very serious charges that have been filed against Trump. And let me tell you, this isn't just any old political banter. These are formal constitutional accusations that have been carefully crafted by a lawyer and a sitting member of Congress. They're now officially part of the House of Representatives record. The first charge is all about obstruction of justice and abuse of executive power. Then we get into the second charge regarding the usurpation of Congress's spending power. The third one is about abuse of trade powers, and it also mentions what's being labeled as international aggression. The fourth charge points to violations of First Amendment rights. The fifth one accuses him of creating an unlawful office. Then there's the 6th charge, which is serious. It's about bribery and corruption. Finally, the 7th charge, which acts like a catch-all, refers to what they call tyrannical overreach, encapsulating the broader conduct associated with all the specific accusations. This all went down just 3 months into Trump's second term. I mean, that's definitely noteworthy. We're looking at a formal constitutional indictment that's been put into the permanent record of the legislative branch of the United States government, and it sets the stage for the accountability case that's being built, aiming for a potential House majority that could actually do something about it. The facts supporting these charges are anything but vague political posturing. They are based on specific documented actions. We're talking about unlawful deportations like the Kilmar-Arbago-Garcia case and defying court orders, which I've covered extensively in previous videos. There are also these emergency tariff schemes that the Supreme Court later deemed unconstitutional, along with retaliation against journalists and lawyers described as First Amendment violations. All of this is now part of the solid foundation for the formal impeachment articles hanging out in Congress. This isn't just some abstract situation. We have an actual legal case being constructed piece by piece in the most official setting available to the legislative branch. And all of this builds on a documented record that we've been following closely here. Now let's dive deeper into the main points here. What specific allegations Theodore and Green have made, why they're significant, what the procedural landscape looks like, and why the Democrats keep pushing these efforts even when the Republicans are shutting them down. Let's talk about the ongoing push for impeachment and how it ties into the upcoming midterms in 2026. I'll break down the 7 articles of impeachment since each one points to a different constitutional issue based on some serious documented actions. First up is obstruction of justice and abuse of executive power. This charges the administration with using its power for political reasons rather than for what's actually good for governance. We've seen the ruling by Judge Boasberg, which found that subpoenas from the Department of Justice were issued without any proper enforcement basis and were driven by political motives. Then there's the Murphy ruling, where DOJ attorneys were caught making false statements in court regarding deportation cases. Additionally, the administration has gone after Judge Boasberg and faced public criticism from Roberts, who called it unacceptable. All these facts lay the groundwork for the obstruction and abuse of power charges. Next is the usurpation of Congress's spending power, which is all about how the administration has been treating the authority over spending. It involves keeping foreign aid that Congress had authorized, effectively disregarding the spending decisions that the Constitution says belong to Congress. The rule is clear. Congress controls the purse strings, meaning they decide where the money goes, while the executive branch is supposed to implement those decisions, not just ignore them. When the administration treats congressional appropriations as mere suggestions instead of laws they have to follow, that's a serious problem. Moving on to abuse of trade powers and international aggression. This charge was filed before the Supreme Court invalidated the IEA tariffs. Interestingly, the court ruled that Trump stepped beyond his legal bounds, which now retroactively supports the core of this impeachment claim. The Supreme Court confirmed that Trump abused his trade powers, and that ruling, which came after the article was filed, strengthens the case. And let's not forget about the violation of First Amendment rights, which points to the administration's ongoing pattern of retaliating against journalists, lawyers, law firms, and various speakers and advocates. So there's a lot to unpack here, and it's all adding up to a pretty serious scenario. The whole situation is pretty wild when you look at everything that's been happening. There's been a lot of pushback against the administration's policies, like revoking security clearances from critics and even throwing threats at media organizations. The executive orders aimed at specific law firms that have represented clients the administration sees as adversaries. They're raising some eyebrows for sure. Many are calling this unconstitutional because it feels like a clear violation of the First Amendment rights, which are meant to protect free speech and press. Then there's the creation of questionable positions within the administration that seem to skirt the usual constitutional process for appointing officials. We've talked about how the ruling regarding unlawfully appointed prosecutors ties into this issue. The Constitution states that principal officers need to be confirmed by the Senate. But when new offices pop up or people are put into positions without following these rules, it leads to an unlawful setup. This brings us to the charge related to bribery and corruption that connects to the financial conflicts we've seen, especially with large investments made by the administration while also deregulating the financial sector. It's a bit eyebrow-raising to note that over $170 investments, all worth more than $20 million, were made while deregulating those same institutions. This makes folks wary since it suggests possible self-dealing, which at the very least looks suspicious and at worst hints at actual bribery. As for the overarching charge, it's a catch-all that sums up the repeated patterns of behavior that some consider an abuse of power. The founders described these kinds of actions as tyranny when they came up with the impeachment clause. This particular article is tricky to defend against. It doesn't hinge on proving a single specific legal breach. Instead, it calls for showing a consistent pattern of ignoring the constitutional limits placed on executive power. The record we've been building through all these discussions provides a pretty clear picture of that pattern. I also want to mention why Democrats keep bringing up impeachment articles even when they don't go anywhere thanks to Republican pushback. Getting into the strategic reasons behind that is crucial to understanding the whole impeachment discussion. When it comes to impeachment filings, there's a lot happening behind the scenes. Every time one is filed, it prompts a reaction from the floor. Republicans need to decide if they want to table the filing, send it to committee, or let it move forward. Each of those votes goes on the record, and that record becomes vital for campaign ads, especially in tight districts. Democrats benefit too. During the impeachment debates, they get a chance to highlight specific actions of the president on the official congressional record. Those speeches become part of the permanent archive, giving them ammunition for future efforts when the political landscape shifts. Now, even if an impeachment effort doesn't succeed, it lays groundwork for future actions. The legal theories and facts established in these attempts could be useful for a House majority down the line that might feel more inclined to pursue a serious impeachment process. Now let's dive into some fascinating procedural details about how this whole thing played out in the House. There were reports suggesting that Thanadar backed down from pushing for an immediate vote after facing some serious pushback from his fellow Democrats. Many expressed concerns that the impeachment focus was taking time away from addressing critical issues like Republican tax cuts, which they thought had a better chance of swaying public opinion and impacting upcoming elections. This kind of internal tension among Democrats is pretty significant. Some are eager to tackle immediate policy issues with potential for real change, while others, like Thanadar and Green, are looking at building a long-term record. Both strategies have their strengths. Working on policy fights is crucial, but so is keeping track of accountability measures. This divide, however, shows the Democratic Party's complicated situation. They're juggling multiple challenges at once. While the impeachment process is moving ahead, it's doing so with less unity and more friction than if the entire party rallied around it as their top priority. When Congress members file formal impeachment articles, it's not just political grandstanding. It's a significant legal and historical action that leaves a lasting impact. These articles become a permanent part of Congress's record, preserved by the Clerk of the House and indexed in the congressional record. This means that historians, legal scholars, future prosecutors, and congressional investigators can access them long after the current political drama fades away. It's kind of wild to think that in 25 or 50 years, these then articles will still be there, laying out the constitutional charges specific members of Congress felt were warranted against the president. What's crucial here is that these formal documents don't fade away like a tweet or a press release, which might just vanish into the ether. Impeachment articles have staying power. They don't disappear when Congress adjourns. They sit there waiting, ready for whatever happens next. Now, I want to focus on Al Green for a moment. His tenacity through 5 impeachment attempts across both of Trump's terms really highlights how some Democrats view these repeated efforts strategically. He filed his latest resolution in December 2025, calling Trump an abuser of presidential power who would continue to promote violence, spread hate, undermine democracy, and threaten our republic if he remained in office. Green gets that his ongoing work isn't just about getting Trump out right now. It's about creating a formal congressional record of Trump's actions that future accountability efforts can reference. Every time Green makes a filing, it adds to that permanent record. Every debate on the floor contributes, and every Republican vote that opposes the impeachment adds to the narrative for the Democrats. They'll be able to point to those moments in 2026, showing that Republicans opted to shield Trump rather than uphold constitutional accountability. Plus, there's also the conversation around the 25th Amendment that runs parallel to this impeachment conversation, which brings in another layer to the discussion about removal. Time magazine recently highlighted some chatter about the 25th Amendment, especially in relation to Trump's comments on Greenland and how he's handled the situation with Iran. We've talked about the push for the 25th Amendment in a previous video, but what's really interesting now is how discussions of the amendment and impeachment are actually working together rather than competing. Both of these conversations are part of the bigger picture of holding leaders accountable. They're just looking at the same issues from different sides of the Constitution. The 25th Amendment suggests that the president isn't, mentally or otherwise, fit for the job, while impeachment argues he's committed serious offenses, high crimes, and misdemeanors to be precise. It's entirely possible for both of these arguments to be true at the same time. When Congress members push for the 25th Amendment alongside drafting articles of impeachment, They're actually building a really well-rounded case for accountability that covers both how fit he is to serve and his actions in office. Whether it's through cabinet actions invoking the 25th Amendment, impeachment proceedings led by a future House majority, potential criminal prosecution after his presidency, or some mix of these options. Everything that's happening right now, like the impeachment filings, the court decisions, congressional testimonies, and calls for removal, is laying down a solid groundwork. This foundation is actually stronger now than it's ever been in Trump's political journey. Now, let's break this down into 3 clear points. First off, the Thanar 7-count impeachment filing stands out as the most thorough formal constitutional accusation against a sitting president recorded in the House. And it's happening so early in a presidential term. The specific charges they're bringing forward are rooted in behavior that courts, investigators, and oversight bodies have been looking into throughout this series of discussions. We're talking about obstruction of justice, which is backed by findings from the Boasberg and Murphy courts. There's also usuration of spending power with documented evidence of him withholding and redirecting congressional funds. Then there's the abuse of trade powers confirmed by the Supreme Court ruling that Trump overstepped his authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. And let's not forget First Amendment violations, supported by documented acts of retaliation against critics, plus the creation of unlawful offices, which ties back to a ruling on unconstitutionally appointed prosecutors. It all paints a pretty detailed picture of bribery and corruption, all supported by ethics investigations. So here's the deal. Democrats are building a pretty solid case for impeachment, even if it feels like a slow process right now. There's this framework they're laying out that connects to financial conflicts in the deregulated banking sector and a whole bunch of other serious issues, all part of the public record. Now, the articles of impeachment might have been filed before all the details were completely fleshed out, but let me tell you, they're definitely stronger now than when they first hit the table. One smart move from the Democrats has been to repeatedly file and then not pass those articles. It's a clever strategy given the current political landscape. They aren't going to be able to get them through in a Republican-controlled House, but what they can do is build a record. They can keep putting Republicans on the spot, making them choose again and again between protecting Trump and upholding accountability to the Constitution. Every single failed attempt today is laying the groundwork for a more successful effort down the line, especially if Democrats manage to flip the House in the midterm elections of 2026. Trump seems to understand this too. He's even predicted that if Republicans lose the midterms, they might be the ones to impeach him. He can see the record being compiled, and it's making him pretty upset. Now, let's talk about the recent addition of those Greenland texts surrounding the Iran war. It gives the Democrats some real ammunition for their impeachment framework. These texts are in the open. People can actually read them, and the details speak volumes. When you consider the tragic loss of 12 American lives and countless others injured without any congressional authorization, it's a palpable example of real consequences and constitutional violations. When the Democrats add these tough facts to the existing articles that already cover obstruction, financial wrongdoing, violations of First Amendment rights, and that tyrannical overreach, the whole case becomes one of the most extensive arguments for constitutional accountability against a sitting president since the days of Nixon. Sure, the numbers might not support removal right this minute, but the groundwork is definitely being laid. It's quite something to think about how the United States Congress is officially handling all of this. It's like they're writing history right there, adding everything to a permanent record that might be referenced any time in the future when the political landscape shifts. Now let's get to the crux of the matter. In April and May of 2025, Representative Shri Thanadar introduced 7 significant articles of impeachment against Trump. These charges aren't light. They include obstruction, abuse of power, taking Congress's spending authority for himself, misuse of trade power, violations of the First Amendment, setting up unlawful offices, bribery, and outright tyranny. Fast forward to December of 2025, and Representative Al Green was back at it with his 5th impeachment resolution against Trump, promising that the movement is still alive and kicking. Recently, a senator even called for new impeachment articles that are tied to the Greenland text and the Iran war, adding to the mix. You know, Republicans have been blocking every single attempt with procedural votes, yet each filing is sticking around in the congressional records. This situation is forcing Republicans to make a choice between supporting Trump or standing up for constitutional accountability, all documented on the record. The accumulation of these records, along with the behavior we've been discussing in this whole series, is gearing up for what might be the biggest accountability showdown in American politics since Watergate. Right here at Pump Politics, we'll keep tracking every twist and turn without any corporate spin. If this video helped you get a clear picture of the impeachment papers hitting Congress, go ahead and hit that like button. I'm curious what you all think. Will the articles from Thanador and Green lay the groundwork for a genuine impeachment process if the Democrats take back the House in 2026, or will Trump just manage to run out the clock? I really want to hear from you, so drop a comment below. If you're not subscribed yet, now's the time. The next video will dive deeper, linking the impeachment situation to the 2026 midterm elections, painting a clear picture of what the path to November could look like. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. See you next time.